What's going on YouTube? Welcome back to the channel. So here's a question I get asked 18 million times a month. Peter, I'm looking for a budget-friendly watch, specifically from the brand Rolex. Now, ultimately, we can't really mix those two words together as, you know, these watches get up to 10, 20, 30, $40,000 pretty quickly. However, this watch right here is definitely a watch that'll fit into pretty much any budget. And personally, it looks great, and it is without a doubt the most reliable, the easiest Rolex to work on, and overall one of the best bangs for the buck. So this watch right here is going to be a reference 6426, which is a 34mm precision, pretty much time-only complication watch. No date, nothing fancy, just a very clean silhouette, coming in at 34mm. It looks great, it fits great, and more importantly, this is a watch that you could put on your wrist, daily wear it, beat it to hell, and honestly, it will take the abuse. Something like this, you could definitely pick one of these up in great pre-owned condition, nice band, great case, under $3,500. Now personally, I think that is a steal of a deal, especially if you can get one right at that $3,000 and below. Get a fresh service on it, a fresh refinish, and you end up with a watch exactly like this. So let's jump into this video. Let's give this watch a full overhaul, and let's restore it to its former glory. Now we get our first up close and personal look at the reference 6426 precision model. And once again, this is a very simple watch. I'm fairly confident by the end of this video, I could pretty much train a chimpanzee with two left hands, an Excalibur size screwdriver, maybe a ratchet, quarter-inch, half-inch drive, I don't know, and some duct tape. He could service this watch. Now, of course, this watch is going to be substantially older from the time period we're in, and that's indicative of this case back. As you guys can see, it's a flattened case back. There is no protruding edge, and that is specifically because this watch is hand wound. It's not an automatic. You can't charge it just by walking around with it. And luckily, this watch is working. So you actually have to wind it up until the mainspring stops, and that's how you know you have a full charge. Luckily, this watch is working. It's functioning. It's not running great, but all the functions work. So we're really going to dive in here. There's not a lot to this watch, so I could show you guys pretty much in depth every single step that it takes. It's very straightforward. So let me know how you guys like this type of video. Put a lot more effort into it, so hopefully that pays off. Now, first step, of course, is going to be removing that case back, and then we could finally get a look at our Caliber 1225 movement. Now, I'm a nut when it comes to movements, both for the finishing work and the overall engineering of the movement. Now, the Caliber 1225, it's a perfectly engineered machine. Everything is there with a purpose, and this is why it's so easy to work on. Everything fits together, everything works, and everything has a function, right? It's not overly complicated, it's very simplified, and it's pretty much there just to tell you the time of the day. Now, I don't know who else caught this, but I'm seeing a problem right off the bat. And that's going to be our second pinion friction spring is actually hanging off to the side, and it's not actually holding down our center second pinion. Now, our second hand's still moving, it's held in there by friction. This spring pretty much just makes sure it stays down, but luckily, second hand is holding everything together. So we're going to go ahead and start dismantling this watch. Now we can go ahead and start loosening the screw for the setting lever. This allows the crown to slip right out. And then we could go ahead and move over to the brittles and the screws. Now, brittles are those pretty much rectangular hole at the end. You know, this is a movement tab. I mean, that's realistically what everybody calls it, but Rolex calls it a brittle and a screw. I don't know, this pretty much just holds the movement into the case via friction. So we're going to go ahead and get those out of the way. Now, the second pinion friction spring, we could loosen that screw, remove the screw itself, as well as the spring. Now that we have those off, we could turn our attention over to the driving wheel. This one sits over the third wheel, and as you guys just saw, that thing got sent into outer space. But it landed right back on top of the bench. It's okay, we found it, the wheel is fine. But this is the movement ring I was referring to. This basically maximizes the OD of the movement itself. That takes up the remaining space inside of the mid case, make sure everything fits perfectly. Now we can go ahead, we can make sure that our hands are in line because we need to remove them. Protect the dial at all costs, nice piece of plastic, get our hand levers, and very, very slowly, light pressure. You want to make sure that everything is even when popping these hands up. Otherwise, you run the risk of snapping a seconds wheel. And I mean, you don't want to do that, all right? Now we can get the dial out of here. Then we can start really taking this watch apart. We want to remove everything up top. that'll pretty much fall off as soon as we flip this movement over. First thing we always want to do, remove the power. Then we can go ahead and remove the screw as well as the balance itself. We're going to remove the balance complete. 1, this does not need to be in there. 2, you run less of a risk of damaging it, so make sure that's in a safe place. Now we can go ahead and start removing our ratchet wheel screw. Always want to make sure that you have the correct head screwdrivers going into all these screws, just so you don't mar them up, or pretty much ovalize the actual cuts in them. Ratchet wheel is coming off. Then we can move right over to this crown wheel. Remove both of these very, very small screws. They might have like 2 or 3 threads on them. I mean, it's a headache. I've lost one of these once, and I kid you not, I've spent hours looking for one of them. It is a nightmare. It's a headache. But this is a 3-part component, and that consists of the crown wheel core, the actual crown wheel, as well as the crown wheel seating. Now, there's a thick layer of grime and dirt built up on that crown wheel seating, so we're going to have to do a lot of hand cleaning before I send this through my cleaning machine and just put in fresh liquid, not ruining it. Now we can go ahead and we can remove all the screws that hold down this barrel bridge. I want to remove 3 of them in total, keep these in the exact location so you know which bridge it correlates with. Then we can actually remove the bridge itself. Now, like I said, there's not a lot to this watch, so there's only 1 screw holding down this train of wheel bridge, and sometimes these bridges are tight. They were screwed down too tight, so you got to get a little flathead through there, apply some pressure. It'll basically pop up on its own. You want to make sure you do it evenly. You don't want to go crazy here, otherwise you do actually run the risk of bending a bridge, and that's never good. Alright, but we got this one up, so we can go ahead, remove the entire bridge, and then we can start removing the train of wheels here. Now, why isn't this coming out? Well, that would be because I left the cannon pinion on. It happens. I don't know, I forgot. Alright, calm down. We're going to go ahead, we're going to keep on removing all these train of wheels here, get everything out of the way, remove our escape wheel. Make sure you put this in a safe spot. These are very brittle. They will break. You can damage it very quickly. Let's get our barrel out of here as well. I'm hoping that there's some crazy buildup in there. I don't know, just to see it. But lastly, we have our pallet fork, so we're going to remove the bridge. Oh, okay, nice. Now we can go ahead and get our pallet fork out of the way. See, another very delicate part. Alright, you don't want to bang this around. So now we're going to do just a very quick visual inspection under the microscope. I'm just showing you guys pretty much what I look for. I look at all the bushings, all the jewels, just to see if there's any cracks. Is there any rust? Is there any ovalization? Is something just not a perfect circle anymore that would cause a problem with timekeeping? Luckily, this movement is pretty clean, so we could flip it over to topside and go ahead and start disassembling that. Now, topside, once again, there's not a lot going on with this movement, so it's very straightforward, and it's going to be very simple. First thing we're going to do is start removing the screws for our setting lever jumper. Now, there's 2 small screws here. Once again, right size screwdrivers fit perfectly in. We can apply torque, remove the screws, and then we can actually see what the setting lever jumper does. Now, this engages, and this is what actually allows your watch to jump in and out of different positions. Time setting, winding, it pretty much glides along on the setting lever, and ultimately you go in and out of positions. Now we're removing this plate or this cover here, and you guys could see just how much oil is actually trapped under here. The setting wheel, it's lifting up this piece right here. I mean, come on, that's way too much oil. Setting wheel does not need that much. Now we can go ahead, get out the minute wheel. Now we move over and we can actually see this is the yoke spring, and this is what keeps tension on the sliding pinion for the yoke. So, you know, we got to get this out of here. That thing will fly away. Be careful with it. Now we're removing the yoke for the sliding pinion. And once again, I'll show you guys how these things work. As you can see, I'm pretty much moving the crown and stem in and out. You guys can see all the teeth intertwining with each other. And this is how your mechanical watch works. Now, the only reason we can't pull this stem out yet is, once again, we have to remove the screw for the setting lever. And you'll actually see the setting lever fall right out there. Now we can pull the stem out and bang. Now, moment of truth, I was hoping to see some black sludge. Okay, or the barrel cover could get, once again, sent into space. Now, this is not dirt. That's actually wear and tear of the parts pretty much riding up against each other for many, many years. I don't know the last time this thing was serviced, but we're going to get this mainspring out of here. Pretty much walking it back and forth until it's fully out. This is under immense pressure. I promise you, I've done it before. The barrel will fly across the room. You could hurt your hand. I've gotten a nice cut before. But if you look at the mainspring, that's what actually stops it. That's what helps it break inside of the barrel. But for now, we're turning our attention to all of these parts. Everything was filled with dirt and grime, so I have to physically go in here and hand clean each and every part. Now our center wheel, this is what actually holds on to the cannon pinion. This thing was filled up with rust. Now I'm talking in between all the cogs, on the actual pivot, on the actual stem itself. I mean, there's just a ton of rust. I don't know how this got here, but every other wheel didn't have that much. But so what I'm going to do here is throw it on a piece of just dirty pithwood, try and clean it out as much as I can. Now, this is a tedious process. You want to make sure you're not bending anything. You don't want to break anything. Ultimately, we just want to try and clean this thing back up, and came out phenomenal. There's no more rust anywhere on this wheel, and I'm confident that this thing will clean up nicely once it goes through the machine, and we could reuse this in the actual movement. Now I'm going to let it soak. It's a nice solution I've devised over the years. This will eat away rust, it'll eat away grime very, very quickly, but it won't actually mar or etch the surfaces of all these parts. Now here's a bridge that's often overlooked, and this is going to be the pallet fork bridge. Now no oil goes on the top or bottom side of the jewel, but it could still get dirty, and this one somehow, in the actual pivot hole, it had some dirt. And same thing goes for the train of wheels bridge. Now I removed the actual cap jewel that goes here for the escape wheel, and this is just a piece of wood that it pretty much conforms to every one of these pivot holes. Now it might look like it's a little bit too big, but trust me, it's filing itself down. It's a soft wood. This pretty much cleans out any remnants of old oil, gummed up grease, whatever the case is. But we want to make sure that all these bridges, all the pivot holes, they're pre-cleaned. The machine can only do so much, so you might as well help it out before actually sending it through there, just so we get the best cleaning possible. Alright, now we made it to the point. Every part has been pre-cleaned, everything's in individual baskets. Stack up all the baskets, throw it in the main tray, and then we can get to use my favorite machine. Now this is an Elma watch parts cleaning machine. It's a very cool machine. It's a little bit older, but this does a phenomenal job. This is one of the upgrades I made up until I get an automated system. It's just very cool to use. So enjoy these cinematic shots. Maybe I'll jump in every now and then just to show you guys what's going on. But first rinse solution, we're throwing that in, the basket spins, and then we could start the cleaning cycle. I don't know how well you guys could hear this tick 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 noise, but it genuinely sounds like, you guys know what it sounds like. Right, I don't want to say because of YouTube, but it sounds pretty nuts, all right? And I'm afraid people next door, they don't know what the hell's going on. So it is what it is. But now we completed the first rinse cycle. We're going to pull the basket up, turn the machine back on, and this will remove any excess liquid that's in those baskets, in the parts. We want to make sure everything is nice and clean before moving it over to our second rinse solution. Same process. Drop the basket down, turn the machine on, and then we can get this thing started. Now we're waiting for our last and final cycle to be done. This is rinse number 3. This one makes the parts all nice, shiny, and bright again. Pretty much enhances the overall finish. But in the meantime, we can go ahead and start up our heater. Now, this is very important. You need to dry every single watch part perfectly, and this thing gets hot. It gets very, very hot very quickly. So it's a good thing. We won't have any water spots, no hard buildup on any of these parts. Now all of our parts are nice and clean, and we could start the reassembly. So this is going to be Clubber P125, very expensive, very thick, black grease. Now you could use 3-4 dots on just the walls, but I like to spread it out. It's nice, it's even, it's perfectly laid out amongst the barrel wall. This just helps pretty much the mainspring, seat into place, and I don't have to rely on the mainspring itself to actually spread out that grease. This is the mainspring. This is the original mainspring as well. Now we're using a tool that's known as a mainspring winder. It's pretty much a special tool. You put this back on, you connect it on the arbor point, and then you go ahead and start winding. Now this coils it back up exactly how you want it to be so that you could shoot it back into the actual barrel. Now there's a few things that I don't do. Don't reuse old mainsprings. As you can see here, this one is very brittle. Look at how easy it is for me to break it. This is a very cheap part to replace, so of course, I replace it every single time. No matter how good the condition looks, especially something like this that's this old, we're going to replace it. Now we have a fresh mainspring. We can go ahead, lay that right over top of the barrel. Using the backside of our tweezers, we're going to press so that we have firm pressure across the whole mainspring, just so it doesn't go in lopsided. I'll go ahead and double check with an acrylic stick, make sure that it's fully seated, and then we can finally release the tab. Now we're moving on to the arbor. So the arbor is what connects on the inner side of the mainspring. This is what allows the mainspring to hold a charge, spin around when you wind it, utilizing the ratchet wheel. The screw that goes in top of it is what holds this whole thing together. Now I'm utilizing some HP 1300, which is a heavier grease, but it's still in a liquid form. This is exactly where the barrel rides on top of the arbor, so we want to make sure that this is adequately lubricated. Now, the same process goes for the top side of the arbor. We're going to add some HP 1300, make sure that this is lubricated, because when we put back down our barrel cover, this is exactly where it makes contact on the arbor itself. Now, we're using a special tool, which is pretty much only utilized to close up mainspring barrels. Cheap, 10 bucks, don't go crazy, don't buy a brand name. It all does the same exact stuff. We're going to make sure that the cap is fully seated and beautiful. Our mainspring is good to go, so now we can put this off to the side. Now we're going to start reinserting cap jewels, and this one is for the escape wheel, and it's located in the train of wheels bridge. So we're going to go ahead flat side down, and then we could go ahead and push in the in-spring setting for the escape wheel here. Make sure that this is fully secured, and then we can go ahead and lubricate that utilizing an automatic oiler. Now Epilum the world. I'm a huge fan of this stuff. I mean, it's literally called out in every service manual, every tech manual from every manufacturer. Epilum is a phenomenal piece of tooling. You coat all these parts in that special liquid, and when you go ahead and apply oil, now it stays in the exact spot that you put it in. Now, when you're oiling a cap jewel like this using an automatic oiler, it gets sucked down through the cap jewel and a nice perfect dot remains. So here's actually a pretty quick tip, and it's actually a cool little party trick, if you will. So we need to lubricate this center wheel, but only in specific areas. So I pick up a little bit of Epilum in between my tweezers, and then I can precisely put it exactly where I need it. Now it's not getting in the cogs of the wheel, it's not going up the pivot on the wheel, it's staying in that very centralized point, and that's exactly where I need to add lubrication. So now I know it's not going to go up the stem into the second hand, it's not going to move around in there. It's in a centralized point, and that Epilum is going to keep that lubrication there. But now we're going ahead, we're reinserting all of our train of wheels here. Escape wheel, second wheel, third wheel, center wheel. You guys know the works. Now we're going to put our bridge on, make sure that our free spin is there. But if you notice, look at that escape wheel. Now this is a good way to make sure that you know the bridge is going down straight and you're not going to damage anything. You want to make sure that all wheels are engaging just like that. Now look at the escape wheel, it's moving freely and we're good to go. Now we're reinserting the complete barrel here. Want to make sure that this is fully seated right in its prospective hole and butting up against all the other wheels. Then we can go ahead and finally lay this bridge down one more time. We know our free spin is good. We know all of our pivots are good. So now the winding bridge, we could start putting down screws. This is the first screw. And you guys want to be careful. This is why it's good when you take watches apart to learn where each and every screw goes. A lot of the screws are different, but when it comes to bridge screws for Rolex, they're pretty much almost always the same. Now, here's a good one. If you look at this bridge here, there's 2 screw holes, but there's only 1 screw left. And that's because that other screw hole on the train wheel bridge, that's what actually holds that spring for the center wheel. So utilizing the last screw, we could tack down this bridge, and then we can go ahead and start rebuilding from there. So our crown wheel, this is our crown wheel seating. Once again, HP 1300 on that post. Put the seating down. We want to make sure that all the holes are lined up. Just like that. Okay. Now we can go ahead and put the actual crown wheel on. HP 1300 once again. Because now we can go ahead and put on the crown wheel core. So this is pretty much what holds everything together. And it's realistically the crown wheel riding in between there and on the actual seating. So you also lubricate in between the lines there, but now we can put down these screws and secure this thing to this bridge. It's also another good lesson, learn the size of screws. You know how many threads are on something, and you'll pretty much be able to tell exactly where it should go. These are very, very small screws, so there's only really one place it can go, and that's to hold down this crown wheel core. Now our ratchet wheel. This is another part I mean, you can't really go wrong. It could only fit in one way. It has that nice square cutout. You want to make sure that that's seated perfectly, it's engaging with the crown wheel, and it's right on top of the barrel arbor. Once we know that everything is engaging, we can go ahead, put down the screw, tighten that down, and then we could start giving this mainspring some actual charge. Now, we don't want to go crazy and fully wind this thing up, just a few revolutions of the mainspring, just so we have enough power, because once we put in that pallet fork, we want to make sure that everything is working. Get our pallet fork seated, we could put down our bridge, and then finally tighten everything down with the screw. Now, here's where we check and make sure that everything is functioning. Notice how our pallet fork tenses up against that escape wheel as we wind the mainspring. Now that lets me know that we have power going through the train of wheels from the mainspring, and now we can actually test the operations of the pallet fork. Exit stone and entry stone, they're engaging with the escape wheel, and pretty much as your balance runs back and forth, that's what's actually going on. Now we have our balance back down, we now have a life, and I mean, come on, this is just a great looking piece of Swiss machinery. I mean, come on, it really is. It doesn't get more simple than this. But our balance is engaging, so that's always a good thing. Now we can go ahead, reinsert our screw to hold down this balance bridge, and then pretty much from there, we're almost done. At least bottom side. We gotta flip this thing back around and do the whole works on the top. But we can't forget about our last capsule. This one's gonna be for the actual balance. And I don't like taking these out before I send it in the cleaning machine. It pretty much just saves that balance staff from being knocked around. So it's easier to do it later. And now we're back up topside, HP 1300 on that center wheel, and then we can actually put down our cannon pinion. Now that that's fully secured, we could start moving on to the keyless works components. Starting off with our winding pinion, now we're going to use some Mobius 9504. Honestly, this stuff you want to use a very liberal amount, especially when you're first putting a watch freshly back together. You want to make sure that everything is lubricated adequately, but you want to put a few dots down and then basically paint all these brigade teeth. You want to make sure that it's a nice flat layer going across all of the teeth. You want to have full coverage just so when it goes into that sliding pinion, you know that everything is lubricated. Now we can drop that in, followed over by the sliding pinion. Now you guys will see exactly how these interact with each other once I get this stem in place. Once again, just a little bit of 9504 on the actual stem where the setting lever goes. Basically, you don't want to reassemble this and start running the movement dry, okay? You guys get what I'm saying. This is setting lever, of course, once again, 9504. We just want to put a few dabs here, both on where it actually goes into the main plate itself, as well as all of our contact points. Now we skipped ahead a little bit, okay, but we're going to reinstall the minute wheel now. This can actually interact with the cannon pinion. We have our spring in there. We have the yoke for the sliding. Now we could also slap in our setting wheel. Now we're pretty much done. There's nothing to the keyless works up here, which is a good thing. Once again, lubricate everything accordingly. Some HP 1300 right on the post of that setting wheel, as that's where the mechanism cover for the setting lever jumper actually sits and rides along. So we want to make sure that there's some grease underneath there, so it's not just butting up metal on metal contact. But as you can see here, that post actually interacts with the setting lever jumper, and that's what allows you to move the crown in and out and get into each and every position, both winding and in this case, time setting. Lastly, of course, we are going to reinsert our screws and make sure everything is torqued down properly and that setting lever is actually engaged with it. So as you can see, I'm moving the crown in and out, checking functionality, make sure everything is getting lubricated. And as you guys can see, this is how your mechanical watch works, especially the keyless components. The teeth all interact with one another, setting lever moves in and out. And now we have a fully functional movement, but we have to turn our attention over to the bracelet, the mid case. Now, unfortunately, I didn't get this on video, but the mid case had a very big dent. Like, there was a ton of metal missing on the case. I had to send it out. It got laser filled. So unfortunately, I didn't get that process on video. But the bracelet, I mean, it's not bad by any means. There's no large scratches, nothing really deep. So just a nice, quick, simple refinish, and this watch will look absolutely brand new. Now, I'm sure people are going to be asking, what type of wheels am I using? What type of satin wheel, diamond wheel, pretty much everything that I'm utilizing here. So I'll try and explain it the best that I can. But you realistically, whenever doing satin finishes or using an abrasive wheel like this, a silicon carbide wheel, you need slow speeds. I know that showed 3,300 RPMs. This is in reality running at about 600 RPMs. But this is a very aggressive wheel. It'll basically clean up everything very, very quick, but it'll also ruin stuff and cut through a lot of metal quickly. Now our crystal, once again, this had a lot of chips, a lot of scratches. The client did send in his own sapphire crystal. However, it had the wrong size gasket. I didn't have the same size gasket that was needed. So I told him, hey, if you want to return the other crystal, I'll try and clean this one up to the best of my abilities. So I sanded that down with 1,000, 1,500, 2,000, all the way up to 3,000, and then did a 2-step polish. And I'm sure there's going to be people saying, oh my God, you polished an acrylic crystal. Yes, absolutely. I 100% did. I do it all the time. Slow speeds and just very light pressure, and you could achieve some very, very good results. Now, whenever you try and hand finish these, you always leave behind micro scratches. However, when using an actual polishing wheel, you get pretty much a crystal clean finish. And just like that, we're done with the entire refinish. We can recase up this movement, reinstall that movement ring, reinstall our stem and crown. Now I also went ahead, re-lubricated the stem here after re-cleaning it, but we want to make sure that it's winding before tightening down that setting lever detent, and then we could go ahead and reinsert our brittle and screws. Now something like this, you always want to make sure that the crown is engaged. You could tighten the screw down and then have a problem where it's not going in and out of positions. So make sure that that's fully torqued, check it on the time grapher, and that's a very, very healthy running watch. Now sit back and enjoy these shots of this beautiful 1225 caliber movement. Now last and final steps, we're reinstalling our crystal that's freshly cleaned up, bring it over to the crystal rack, make sure that we're using the correct size dies, bezel's fully seated, and this watch is good to go. Now after a full refinish, this watch is looking brand new. Luckily, when it came in, it wasn't in that bad of condition, just needed a quick reconditioning and look at the results. This is the same original crystal that this watch came with. After I did the full polish, it turned out absolutely perfect. The dent is no longer in the case, and this is a watch I am happy to send back to my client. As always, guys, thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe, and I'll catch you on the next one.